Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and I'm back. I just finished Metamorphosis, the Star Trek TNG giant novel. And as you can see, it's a little the worse for wear for the reading. Now, Metamorphosis is the second TNG book that I've read by author Jean Laura. The first was the fourth in the numbered series Survivors, which was a Data Tasha centric story, which I remember enjoying fairly well. This one is definitely, as you can see, a Data centric story, but it was just a little bit strange, and it didn't quite hit, I guess, as well as her first novel for me did. Not to say it wasn't fun and had some interesting things, so let's kind of jump right into it and talk about some of that. Now, first off, from the back. Star Trek The Next Generation. It's an all-new crew, all-new starship, but the same Star Trek magic that has thrilled audiences for almost 25 years. Now, join Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the men and women of the Starship Enterprise for their most challenging, exciting mission yet. Metamorphosis. In the best-selling tradition of Spock's World and Enterprise The First Adventure, that's a good one, comes another epic Star Trek adventure, a sweeping saga of transformation and tragedy. Unexplained gravitational disturbances summon the Enterprise to the planet Elysia, where the android Lieutenant Commander Data to a date with destiny. For on this alien world, he will be drawn into an impossible quest, leading him to consequences both heartwarming and disastrous, as he finally dares to pursue his fondest desire, to become human. So, already right there, they're kind of setting you up for something big, right? So the book starts out, actually, this was one of the parts I really liked. The book picks up right after the episode Measure of a Man. Basically, right after Data goes to Riker to convince him to come to the party that they're having to celebrate him having won that case. So, picks up right there, where they have some interesting discussion about, Data wanting to be human and Dr. Pulaski basically saying, be happy with what you are because what you are is special. So there's some interesting stuff right off the bat there that I did like. Of course, the mission, of course, they're called to the planet Elysia to investigate these mysterious gravity anomalies. This is kind of like a important space lane here, and these anomalies will be causing a lot of trouble. So the Enterprise has been tasked to figure out what's going on. Once they get there, they receive a distress signal from some ships that have been caught in one of these gravity anomalies, and this is actually a character from the author's previous novel, Survivors, and this was Dare Aiden and his kind of gang of ragtag crew. So they were featured in the first novel pretty heavily, but he's like an ex-Starfleet operative who kind of goes out there and like a mercenary for hire, a good guy, doing good things for people, but is no longer part of Starfleet at all. So he's rescued, and he's kind of an old friend of Data's, and was also very close with Tasha as well. So he's rescued and is aboard the Enterprise, and is repairing his ships there aboard the Enterprise. So they have to figure out what is causing these anomalies, and this is a strange planet to begin with. It's mostly covered with like uninhabitable swamp, but there's these, I believe, 9 zones of life where basically, for some unknown reason, there is life there that is being shielded from this outer, swamp gas area. So they beam down to one of these zones, and it turns out that they were expected. They were told, the people there were told by their gods to be expecting them to be coming. But they're not really able to learn anything about what the power surges are. So there's this one main mountain there on the planet, and they figure, well, that's the place we really have to investigate. So they all beam over there, and they check that out. And when they get to that mountain, they look around. They can tell that there's some kind of entrance up there, but it's concealed, and they can't get into it. So they decide that for now, they're going to beam back up to the ship, and Data, as they're beaming up, he thinks he detects like a life form nearby, so he has everyone else beam up, and he stays down there. And sure enough, he sees a life form coming through the swamp, and this is the character Thelia. And she comes in, and she is on a quest to this mountain to meet the gods, and if she does that, then she'll have her wish granted to join these two lands together that she lives in. So that is her quest. And she was told by her gods, I guess, to be expecting a partner in the quest. So she kind of was expecting someone to be there, and I guesses that someone is Data. So Data, seeing a way to meet these gods and also suddenly put out of contact with the ship, everything kind of gets shut off. The gods have kind of spoken basically and said, well, yep, you're going to get to do this quest now. He goes up the mountain with Thelia. They find the hidden concealed entrance and go in. And here in the book, it begins what is kind of a, almost reminding of like a Dungeons and Dragons type of adventure, where Data and Thelia have to go up the mountain, passing a variety of different tests that the gods have put before them, each kind of based upon their own, weaknesses and strengths and that kind of thing. So they're both able to conquer these series of strange tests, but a bit of an interesting read during that part, I would say. And they make it to the end. So they each are going to receive their greatest wish, whatever that is. So as Thelia's leaving, she gives Data a kiss on the cheek. It was kind of like a thank you for all the help. And she gets, whisked away to get her greatest wish. And then Data gets his greatest wish. And the gods of Elysia turn Data into a human being. Right. So that's what happens. And that's like halfway through the book. And as at this point in the book, I'm like, there's no way the author's going to get out of this in the end without some sort of it was all a dream or some kind of thing like that. Because otherwise, how could this, you can't just go forward into other novels with this situation unresolved as it is. So human Data is beamed up by the Enterprise, and of course the crew is at first very suspicious. They don't think it's him. Apparently, as a human, he doesn't look like himself very much. He's kind of almost unrecognizable there. So I figured he would just look like Brent Spiner, but I guess they went with something different there. But now begins a point in the book where basically they decide they can't figure out the situation on Elysia, so they have to just kind of put up a sign saying, go around this area, beware of the gravity anomalies. And they have to move on to their next mission. And their next mission is very interesting and actually could have been a story all of its own, but it was mixed in with this and some other weird stuff. So that's one of the things about this book, is it seemed to maybe try to do too much with this, when you could probably just have the story of Data grasping with, trying to deal with being a human, be more than enough. You wouldn't have to throw in too many different of these little odds and ends. But I did enjoy this part of the story. The mission that they're called into is a planet that's close by has claimed that they're invaded by a race called the Konor, who are mercilessly going through, and they've already taken over one planet, and they're in the process of slaughtering and taking over another planet right now. They don't take prisoners, they don't communicate, they just come in and kill. And that's basically what they've done, and they've wiped out, most of this, like I said, so many of these planets' people. So they're calling in the Enterprise to help, and of course the Enterprise has to come in and first, investigate what's going on. So that's what they're tasked to do. So Data is kind of relearning his Starfleet certifications during this time too. So you got scenes of Data doing some training and Data kind of relearning some things that he didn't know before, all while trying to help out with this mission as well and kind of plan the upcoming, plan for the upcoming meeting with these Konor. So in reviewing the situation and reviewing the footage, they're able to see that these Konor are actually the same species as the Samdians. So the Konor are actually, it's a first or not a prime directive situation where basically they can't get involved now because it is not an outside force that's coming in. It's their own people that's attacking them. Now they do beam down and try to speak with them, but they are completely unable to. the Konor use some method of telepathy that is like unknown to them, so that they can't reproduce it. And since they can't reproduce it, the Konor believe that they are soulless. So for them, they are on like this mission from Providence, basically, that they've been given this planet, and everyone else should just step out of the way. And since they're not stepping out of the way, they kill them, basically like animals. So like I said, this is a very interesting part of the book that really could have been expanded on quite a bit. But it tried to go into a lot of different places. But the situation going on here was awful, first off, very awful. But just made for a very interesting moral dilemma, too. So, in the end, there was nothing that they could do. They had to basically give up and leave. Of course, the crew, Dare Aiden's crew, is not bound by Starfleet regulations, so they agreed to stay and try to help out. But for the crew of the Enterprise, it was another failure. So 2 failures in a row. Data is still kind of unsure of himself as a human, and there's some weird sequences of him like maybe trying to date people, maybe, but there's something like in the back of his mind that he can't quite get past. And they finally do realize that he's in love. And he's in love with this Thelia. And he just didn't realize it the whole time. So Captain Picard agrees. Just press that rant alert button. We're going to press the rant. I'm going to start ranting probably soon, because this book, it kind of goes off the rails, really. Alright, so here we go. This is where I need it. I'm going to get a dry throat if I start ranting too much. So, listen. At this point in the book, Captain Picard agrees to take him back to Elysia to meet with Thelia because he's in love with her, right? They don't have anything better to do at this time, so they decide they should recheck on the gravity anomalies anyway. But anyway, he beams down there, and it turns out that Thelia actually got her wish, and her 2 lands were joined together. And she got another wish as well. She got her husband, or her soon-to-be husband, Sharn. So Data, heartbroken, because Thelia is taken by this Sharn. These names I thought were really cool, too. It reminded me of like something out of Edgar Rice Burroughs or something. Thelia and Sharn going on a quest to the Holy Mountain. Something out of that. So many little interesting parts here. And just maybe not put together quite in the right way. But it's at this point when Data remembers that Thelia told him earlier the women of her line have a special ability where when they kiss a man, that man is forced to love her forever. Now, Thelia kissed Data when he was an android, before she was whisked away. And then Data was turned into a man. So the love spell was passed on. And that's what happened. And that's why he was in love with her. And that's why he was struggling to deal with his humanity and dating and other things that were going on in those previous somewhat strange chapters. So now, the gods of Elysia see the problem that they've created. So they whisk Data back to their wherever. And it's at this point they reveal that the gods of are actually, it almost kind of reminded me of like the wormhole aliens. Some kind of like beings beyond space, beyond time. In all times, they see all times and all possibilities, and like this completely strange and out there. But basically, I knew it. I knew that this is what they were going to do, or what the author was going to do here, because it was all a dream. Not really, but basically the gods say that they can't take away the kiss of love or whatever, but they can go, and they can't take away Data's gift, because that's already happened. They've made him human. But they have basically control over like space-time or whatever, so they can return him to the point in time before he met her. And then if he just avoids meeting her, then the whole thing will not have happened. And he's like, well, yeah, let's just do that then. And that's what they do. And it was all a dream. All those chapters didn't happen. And it's actually, it spans a period of, I think, 5 months. So Data spends 5 months as a human, failing at some adventures, and then none of it happened in the end. But even though you get like nobody likes that. Nobody likes it. It was all a dream trick to get out of it. It's not fun for anyone. But even though they do that, it still ends up being kind of fun in the end, because then you get to see the situation between the Samdians and Konars resolved with Data as an android. And with Data as an android, he is able to fairly quickly figure out that what the Konar possess is not like a telepathy, because he is able to pick it up, and he as an android is able to pick it up. So it is something else that can be reproduced. And if it can be reproduced, they can reproduce it, they can speak with the Konar, and then from there they can move towards some kind of peace talks. And that's exactly what they do. So they make a device, Data goes down there, he speaks with them, they believe him to be one of the ones with souls, and they begin to speak with him. He explains that he actually opens up his chest, he's like, ha-ha, look at me, I'm not a man at all, I'm a machine. And their whole world is like, wow, and they're shocked and awed. You know, they don't know what to do or what to think at that point. So they agree to peace talks. So success. So Data as an android is able to go in and solve the problem that Data as a man had missed out on before. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There were a lot of other parts in this book that were really, really, really good. But again, it just seems like it went off in a lot of different directions. Now, here's what I found pretty interesting. So check this out. This is what Jean said when she was interviewed about the book. Jean loved exploring the notion of Data becoming human. When asked about the novel, she commented, "Oh Lord, let's not go into all that. Suffice it to say that the biggest thing readers object to was not put into the book by me." So, I didn't do any further digging. I'm sure if I looked and looked on the internet, I could probably find some old something where they talked more about this book. But she's got to be referring to the "it's all a dream" thing, I would think, as well. But I thought that was interesting. So, again, I love having that book to reference after reading something, because it always adds something fun to it. So it was interesting to see that apparently the editors had a big play in how that book worked out. So, well, that wasn't too bad of a rant, was it? Look at my notes on this. So terrible notes. I read this book over... Let me see. I wrote it down. Started on the 14th, finished it up last night on the 26th. So read it over a period of 12 days, with Thanksgiving in there and all the preparation and the craziness that goes with that. So I could have gave it more time, and then maybe I would have enjoyed it a little bit more and not been so critical of its strangeness. But in the end, I would say it was a worthwhile read. But I sure did beat the heck out of the cover. I don't know what I was doing there. What's next? Star Trek books will be done for the year. I'm going to move into... I haven't done this in a while, and I really want to do this. I'm going to read The Hobbit, and then I'll read The Lord of the Rings. And hopefully, we'll get all that wrapped up before the new year. So that should be really, really fun. But I do have some videos coming that I am planning on doing. And one that I thought would be fun would be a year in review. So I'm going to go back and just kind of go through all the books that I read this year and kind of briefly what I remember about them. And just spend a video doing that and kind of going over my old notes. And I thought that would be fun to do. So look forward to that coming up in the future. Also thinking about having a video talking about Prodigy, because the latest Prodigy episode really kind of expanded this show into the main lore. So really love that. So lots of good stuff coming. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.